Okay, here's another demonstration video using the Madolo AS33, Madolo+B21 AS33 glider, and particularly explaining the use of this nav panel. There's a flight plan loaded, and it is from Reutte-Hofen in Austria, flying to Oberpfaffenhofen, which is in Germany, just near Munich, and it's the flight you can see drawn on the map there. There is one leg. Okay, and the settings of this instrument are to show where it says feet AGL. It's showing our arrival height at Oberpfaffenhofen at minus 4,640 feet beneath the airfield. You know, the airfield's at 1900. This is feet above ground. All these are feet above ground level. Okay, it's also telling us that it thinks we've got roughly an 8-knot headwind between us and the destination, and that agrees with what's shown on this gauge here. I've actually set a 17-knot wind from roughly that direction, but the winds are lower on the ground. Okay, so after we take off, you'll see this wind build up relatively quickly up to 17 knots. And this flight computer, which is calculating the arrival height, is going to get more pessimistic, because at the moment it thinks there is an 8-knot wind blowing towards us, because that's all it can see at the moment. It can't see what's above us. As this wind builds up, this height will come down, i.e. get more negative, because that wind speed is actually going to go up. And I'm going to make it even worse by, there is a rookie error. This instrument here is where you, amongst other things, it's the variometer. It shows you how fast you're going up or down. That's the main red needle. This blue needle is you telling the instrument, or telling the whole plane, what lift you're expecting, and consequently how fast are you expecting to fly. And at the moment you're saying, I am expecting 0 lift, and the flight computer is saying, aha, okay, if you're getting 0 lift, you should be flying at 68 knots. That will give you the best glide. And it turns out the stronger the lift, for the optimal flight performance, the optimal cross-country speed, the stronger the lift is, the faster you should be flying between those thermals. Okay, so if it's a stonking day, 6-knot thermals, you can fly really quite quickly, particularly in this glider. It is worth it. So you get to the thermals quickly, and then you pull up and you circle in that strong thermal, then off you go again at high speed. If the thermals are very, very weak, then it's worth tiptoeing through the air. So you need fewer thermals, basically. The faster you fly, the faster you're going to come down. If the thermal's going to be weak, fly more slowly, because then you won't need so many of these crap thermals. So what I'm going to do, though, here, is I'm going to increase that Mccready setting to 4 knots, and it's saying, right, on average, you'll be flying 110 knots between thermals with the current setting of the plane, which means we're carrying full ballast. Full ballast makes a huge difference, makes the plane difficult to fly, but it also means it pays to fly really fast, because you've got that full ballast on board. If you want to fly slowly, then you shouldn't be carrying the ballast, basically. Okay, and when I increase the expected strength, which meant the computer assumes, therefore, I am going to fly optimally, and if the lift is that strong, then I am going to fly that fast, then this has got a lot worse. It was we were going to arrive 4,500 feet or something beneath the airfield. Now we're going to arrive 6,700 feet beneath the airfield, because we've told it we're going to fly fast. But it'll all make sense. So, you can always reduce this while you're flying, and that will get a bit more optimistic. So there's a safety margin built in because of the speed we're flying. You'll also see typically I'll fly a little bit slower than the computer is recommending, because that kind of builds in a safety margin as well. I'll try not to do that too much on the final glide. Okay, so with that, engine management on. Extract the engine. There we go, there's the engine coming out. This instrument down here will go green when it's properly extended, then we can start the engine. In aerotow flaps, which is correct. Okay, brakes are fully on. Start the engine. Let the revs pick up. Air brakes off and wheel brake off, and off we go. Quite a wind blowing down this grass strip. So takeoff will be relatively easy, but the grass, is particularly long grass, is going to slow the plane down and make it a little bit more difficult for us to get off the ground, just because of that friction. Here we go. Don't worry, no problem. Up we go. Gear up. Okay, then dead ahead here, that mountain in the distance. We're going to climb to get somewhere near that, and then I'm going to ridge-soar. On the front of it, we will need to gain height to be able to get to our Oberpfaffenhofen destination. But I'll do that. This arrival height indication in the bottom right hand corner will gradually go in our favour, and then we'll set off on a final glide straight to that airport. You can see we've got, in a straight line at the moment, we're 82 kilometres away from that airport. By the time we've gone round that mountain and climbed a bit, we'll be maybe 50 kilometres away, which is still a fairly long final glide, which means you need the instruments to be accurate to get us there. But you'll see the instrument working. I think I'll be climbing to about 5,000 feet probably. MSL. And this knob down here, the waypoint knob, I'm going to change our active waypoint. It was currently set to the airfield we've just taken off from. This flight plan is simply a 2-point flight plan. It's got a origin, a departure, sorry I should say, and a destination. And we've loaded that flight plan. This panel copes with it perfectly fine, displays the 2 waypoints. I will change it to Oberpfaffenhofen and there is no point in showing the waypoint above us. If there were more waypoints still to go, like if it was a triangle, we would still be seeing this waypoint and the next waypoint, but there are no more waypoints, so it's just showing us the one. And as I've mentioned on other videos, this gauge, I think I'm going to change the text prompt from nav data to nav display. It is just purely affecting the display, it doesn't change anything else. And you can just look at the navigation arrows if you want more space for the map, or you could have nothing if you don't have any plan and you're just going to wander about. Okay, but we'll fly it like that. So what I really need to do, I need to climb high enough to get around to the upwind side of this mountain you can see coming up. Okay, so I'm just going to climb a little bit more. Just so I reduce the amount of ridge soaring. This total flight is going to take about 45, the flight's going to be 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes, so it's going to be a long video. Feel free to skip ahead if there's a particular bit you're interested in. Right, kill the engine. Let's have a look. When the revs go to 0 down here, which they'll do shortly, then I'll retract the engine. There's the airfield where we've come from. And you could see, even though there's only two waypoints on this entire task, the active waypoint is Oberpfaffenhofen, which is here, and the active leg is this one that's highlighted in black and yellow, so it shows up under any background, and it's actually animated in the direction you're supposed to be flying. Okay, so the idea is we're going to get some ridge lift here somewhere. We've got to gain 4,400 feet overall, which can will include getting closer to the destination waypoint. We'll do that a bit at the same time. I'm just predicting a bit of ridge lift about to appear. If you're turning in lift near a ridge or a slope or mountainside, you always, there's no turn away from the mountainside. That's for two reasons. One is so you don't hit the mountainside. The other is so that other pilots know which way you're going to turn. The lift isn't that great yet. I'm hoping to just get up a little bit higher. I'll be able to get onto the main mountain. I'm way too slow. Just thinking about where to go next. Just need another 1,500 feet. You can see the instrument telling us that we do have a 16 knot headwind to get us to the destination now. And that's all been factored into this arrival height. So we've actually gained more height than it looks. pretty confident there'll be more ridge lift. Just the other side of this ridge we're just flying over. And then we've always got the one you can see further ahead too. Oops. I'm keeping an eye on this bottom right hand corner and trying to get that to go positive. As soon as it's positive, we're going to head off and straight glide. Okay, we're not doing that well. We will do it though, because we're gradually shortening the difference to waypoint and getting some lift. Okay, I'm going to compromise the speed I'm going to fly by reducing the setting. There you go. And you see the change if I put it back up to 4 knots. We get 760 feet beneath. We have 740 feet, not enough. If I just ratchet this back a notch, so now saying that's the equivalent of 3 knot climb, which has reduced our expected speed, then it's much closer. We're going to make up some height as well because of this high ground facing into wind, the ground facing slopes that we're going to be flying over. So you can see the instrument now. Look, we've made it, in theory. In reality, you'd be super, super careful because you can fly through sync. It's just Microsoft at the moment is simulating lift over hilly ground with the wind blowing over the hilly ground. But there isn't the air in between over flatland is pretty much dead to all intents and purposes. Asobo is saying they are simulating that air movement, but you know it's not turned on. Let's put it that way. I'd sort of question whether you can argue you are simulating something if it doesn't appear in the sim. But hopefully it just bodes well for the future when the thermals are introduced and gliding is introduced. Okay, so pretty soon we're going to turn into wind, head off towards the airport, Oberpfaffenhofen. That's the best I can do. We're going to pick up more lift just the other side of this ridge. You can see from the direction arrow on the nav panel, we're flying, and on the map, we're flying to the right of track, but you know, we're going to straighten up and get going. I sped up just in case there was a bit of sink back here, but it's certainly not too bad because we're behind a ridge at this point. But whatever we get in front of it, I'm going to pull up into slow down, put the flaps out, positive flap, and we'll milk it a little bit. Okay, that's about the best we can do. 51 kilometers to go. We're going to glide with complete faith in the instruments. When this, we are getting more ridge lift. It's further out from the ridge than I thought it might be. I'm watching the netto gauge in the, oops, down here, showing us what the air is doing outside the glider. Okay, so I'm definitely flying faster. And we'll see how we get on. So if you watch the green needle here in this speed to fly variometer, the green needle is saying whether the computer thinks we're flying. It thinks we're flying too fast at the moment. It's kind of telling, oops, it's telling us to slow down because it is getting small amounts of lift, varying amounts of lift. The red needle is showing with acceleration of the aircraft cancelled out of the figure. It's showing us, are we net, are we rising or are we sinking in the air? That's what the red needle is doing. And obviously you expect it to be sinking. We're a glide, it's not a perpetual motion machine. We are gliding. We're gliding forwards at a certain speed and downwards at some other speed. The glide ratio, the best glide ratio of this glider is, I forget exactly, 57 to 1. And this instrument, by the way, is calibrated with the performance of the real glider. It's not calibrated with the performance of whatever we managed to do with Microsoft Flight Simulator. And that is important, where the fact that it's kind of reading zero. You know that this air mass in general in Microsoft Flight Simulator, apart from where it's bumping, the air is bumping into hills, is not going up or down. And you'll see, let's say, even at, what are we doing, 90 knots, full of ballast, this gauge is correctly subtracting the correct amount of sink from this plane, and therefore working out what the air outside must be doing, and it's saying it must be doing around about zero. But if you're flying along at 90 knots, just by a slight movement of the stick, it's quite easy to be going 1 knot, 1 mile an hour. That's about a third the speed you can walk. You'd be going down, or you'd be going down at 5 knots or up at 5 knots. You'd hardly be able to notice the difference. But this netto gauge cancels all of that out. Not all of it. It works the same. It attempts to simulate the same way a real instrument works. And I could demonstrate that, but I won't. And it's just looking at it's been programmed as if the only two things it knows is your altitude, which would come from the same pressure feed the altimeter gets, and your airspeed, which comes from the same pressure speed that your airspeed indicator gets. And it takes those two things in. And then the real instrument, the pneumatic, the steam gauge, there's actually a complicated little set of pipes and capillary tubes which completely nets one off against the other so that it works as a netto vario. And to do that in a simulator is a lot more complicated. You have to put in a whole load of math into it, so it works the same way. and that is not the same thing as cheating and looking in the simulator and trying to find some flight simulator variable that tells you what a SOBO is doing with the vertical wind, and then simply having that drive the instrument. The advantage of doing it properly, the way we've done it here, is this instrument really behaves quite similarly to a real one. Because I'm pretty sure if we were reading something from a SOBO and just cutting short the whole process, it wouldn't be moving quite so responsively and convincingly. It would be flicking up and down according to whatever a SOBO programs, and it wouldn't be realistic. I'm not watching where I fly at all. That lake in front of us, I was wasn't really thinking about it. I was thinking it was the left hand of the two. So we're flying at what, 5,800 feet? That's 5,000 feet above, roughly, the destination airport. Lake 1. Oh, I can see the lake. It's just off the nose to the left. So there you go, we're going halfway between the lakes now, roughly. So 36 kilometers is still a fair old final glide. I guess that's about 20 miles, not sure, something like that. Far enough that with the headwind, I might do another. I know these things are a bit dull, they're like 50 minutes long and it's mostly just this hovering in midair. This is us, so we're 34 kilometers away, but we are on final glide. That's with a, 14 knot headwind. The performance with a 14 knot tailwind is awesome, amazing. I mean, or with no wind, it's amazing. So everything I'm showing here, which is with the headwind, we're coming down considerably steeper with this headwind than we would do with a tailwind. Still programming this windsock, yaw string, so it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. Not sure what it is doing. But it's not doing what it's supposed to do. It is now. That's the first design of this gauge I came up with. And then kept it as a choice if people prefer it. The advantage is you can see tailwinds better, but the gauge is a bit small. Because I was getting more confident in the finish, I turned up the Mccready, so the Mccready calculated with a faster speed, adjusted the arrival height, and I'm just checking it's still positive, and then I'm kind of happy to fly at that increased speed, even though it's 20. We've still got 20 kilometers to go. Because I've got 2 safety margins, I can always slow down a bit, and that will reduce the amount of height I use. And I can turn the Mccready down and have it recalculate for that slower speed, and it'll tell me. But I know there's a fair old margin in there, and 20 kilometers is not that far really. If I know I'm doing 110 knots, which is worth 600 feet, you know, in effect at flying speed, I'm 600 feet than I could be if I want, just by pulling up. So there's the lakes on the left. One on the right. There's the hills we came from behind us. On a day with thermals, with decent cumulus clouds marking where those thermals are, you'll set off on a final glide when the arrival height is still negative, because you're going to be that confident that just by pulling up under each of these fantastic looking cumulus clouds, you're going to gain a little bit of height on the way. And that might add up to, say, I don't know, 1,000 feet on the way. In worst case, you can stop and turn in one if you had to. Okay, my arrival height just went negative, so I'm probably overdoing the high speed thing. So we've still got 1,400 feet to come down. I'm looking at the difference between the altimeter versus the height of the destination airport, which is 1,900 feet. It's basically 1,200 feet below us now. Even so, this gauge, and we've got 11 kilometers to go, this gauge is calculating our arrival height to within a few feet if there is 0 lift or sink and we fly at the right speed. You know, if we fly at the speed we told the computer we're going to fly at, which is called flying Mccready, it's telling us to slow down. Oh, we're getting a little bit of lift, a tiny bit of lift off these little ridges underneath us. And that's enough for the variator to tell us to slow down. And it may look like we've gained height there, because now it's saying 320 feet, whereas previously it was saying plus 50 feet. You can't be sure because we're not flying at the same speed we were before. Okay, if I sped back, I can't remember how fast we were going, 125 knots, something like that. If we speed back up to that, then our height will actually come back down. Nevertheless, we gained a little bit of height by that short period where we slowed down. Okay, we'll start thinking, because we know we're not very far away, start thinking about landing checks, water, undercarriage, flaps, speed, trim, air brakes, lookout, landing. Okay, we're going to start with water. I'm not convinced I've set the dump speed. It's all in computer code, but the speed with which this plane can dump all its water, it's not that far off. But it might be a little bit quicker than reality. I know my plane, which I no longer own, but the plane I used to have, the glider I used to have, which has got the same fuselage as this one, same dump system, would take a little bit longer to dump. Right, I can see the airfield just off the nose there, so I'm happy to eyeball it. We'll see what speed we're going to be when we get there. We're going to be fast. We're 500 feet above it now. Oh, not now, we've got 500. If we just carry on gliding, we're going to be 500 feet above it, so I can definitely speed up. There we go. Gear down. Not doing a proper circuit. Don't think I've quite got the height for it. Can't see the airfield. Oh, there it is. Air brakes coming open. Off the runway. Watching out for those lights. There we go. All good.